People that work on movie sets, what are the most entitled actors you have ever met? Third hand here, so who knows? But a person I know has worked with Kevin Smith. During the filming of Live Free or Die Hard Day, we are shooting Kevin's scenes. I guess the call time was 7 AM. Everyone is ready, lights on, sound check, yada yada. No Bruce Willis. Turns out he was at a nearby bar having mimosas. The aide that went to get him was told I'm John McClane. What are they gonna do? Fire me? Or something to that effect. To Kevin's estimation, $90,000 were wasted in pay, rental fees and whatnot waiting on Bruce to be ready to go. I was worried you were gonna say something bad about Kevin Smith cause he seems like a super cool dude in all the interviews I've seen of him. Had the privilege of meeting him once, and he was so sound. Me too, but I've never heard of a bad story about Smith. Sounds like a super cool dude. I used to work in the industry for a while. Asked some colleagues about the worst people they've worked with. More than one said Steven Seagal was a grade A douchebag. Another said Mike Myers was a nasty piece of work. Seagal brought his mom into the hospital where my ex-wife worked. He parked his car in the ambulance-only area and refused to remove it, citing his authority as a special county deputy sheriff. That's BS, because a real cop wouldn't even do that knowing that it is a huge safety violation. Seagal is literally a special sheriff's deputy. From what I hear, Myers is really hard to work with because he's an extreme perfectionist and wants everything done the way he has it in his mind. I went to school with a guy who wound up co-starring in a feature film. I saw him in the bar one night. He walked up to this table of women and said, "So, who wants my autograph?" He even had a pen. The women had no idea who he was because the movie he'd been in was some short-run B movie nobody had even heard of. Insecure people who gain any sort of fame and recognition are the most cringy of all. I'm tempted to try this sometime. Just ask people if they want my autograph. If they ask who I am, I'll show them a little YouTube video, lol. The man who must say I'm king is no king at all. Tywin Lannister. Michael Jordan said something similar. He was in the B movie and they didn't want HSI autograph. I was playing a background doctor on a nerd-type drama a couple years ago. While rehearsing a scene, one of the actresses said to the performer next to me, "Tell him he can't stand there." She was referring to me. I adjusted my position and asked, "Is he okay?" She said, again to the actor next to me, "Tell him I don't care, just stay out of my way." I asked, "Is there some reason you're not addressing me directly?" And she turned around and walked away. A few minutes late the scene was shot without further incident. I have no idea who this actress is. She wasn't one of the stars. Someone treats you like that, and you don't know her name? If only to personify the resentment. Me, I'd know her name, just so I could post it on the internet in threads like this. She wasn't prominent enough to have her picture in the CRS. The show wasn't very entertaining, so I never picked up her character's name. When I looked over IMDb, I could only narrow it down to around a dozen people. That's way too many lives to ruin over such a petty slight, or nowhere near enough. Faye Dunaway, and I cannot stress this enough. Faye Dunaway. I've had dealings with her personally, and can vouch for her intitledness and nastiness, but my friend who works on movie sets has horror stories. Extremely demanding, and also picky. She brings her scales with her everywhere, and will make anyone catering weigh it up in front of her. She has a no eye contact rule, which must never be disobeyed, and she also yells and screams when things do not go her way. One time she came into a restaurant I worked at. Waiter came to the table, and before he could open his mouth she handed him a measuring cup and said, "Fill this with chicken salad." He told her, "Sorry, we don't have any." She responded, "Of course you do. You love me, you know all my movies," and then she waved him away. Can't remember how that all resolved in the end, but it was weird. If this was anyone else I wouldn't believe you. But yes, that is her 100%. She frequently introduces herself as the Faye Dunaway, as if that's supposed to mean something to the average millennial who has to deal with her. I try to remember that everyone has bad days and good, and my interactions with people on a professional level can be just that, a bad day or a good day. But that being said, working with Jonathan Frakes was so wonderful that at the end of our time together, I nearly turned around and said I love you, Dad. Everything this kid who grew up wanting to be Commander Ike could hope for. I was about to have a heart attack if you told me Frakes was bad. When I recently admitted to my husband that Jonathan Frakes was one of my first girlhood crushes. My husband stood up, straightened his shirt, fluffed his dark beard, looked at me, and said no way. Until that moment I had not realized I had a type. I was born in '82, so I was still very much a little girl during TNG. How does your husband sit in chairs? Lol. My mom's friend did security for concerts. She always told us about how nice the bands were, but Adele was a nightmare. Her fans started to line up before her concert outside of the stadium and Adele refused to do soundcheck because she didn't want anyone to hear her for free, and you couldn't look at her when she spoke to you. ACDC was the nicest band she encountered, and the Foo Fighters. Dave Grohl is the Keanu of the music industry. I mean, have you ever seen the two in the same room? For some reason I thought Adele would be a nice person. A family friend was her plumber. I live in her hometown, and said she was lots of fun. They ended up having a pint together. I worked as staff in one of Shakira's tours. When the sound check came, they all stuffed us into a little hot tent until they finished. Bruce Vilanch demanded I serve him his Skittles while in my underwear. I was young and wanted to get into the industry, so I, regretfully, did it. Had a good friend that was an extra on the set of The Prestige. They were told not to interact with Bale due to his method acting, but he witnessed a child of someone on the set playing X-Men figures with Hugh Jackman, who was Magneto and the kid was Wolverine. That story doesn't make Bale a bad person. No extra should be interacting with talent unless the scene itself calls for it. Can you imagine being an actor and between every take all 400 background performers in a scene think it's appropriate to talk to you? It's a pretty reasonable ask to be left alone. As for the child of a crew member playing, crew is there every day for weeks or months. That's a different relationship than a background actor who is there for a day. I think the latter story was supposed to paint Hugh Jackman as a good guy. I hope so. That was my takeaway. That's a touching story, but I'm not sure how it paints either actor as entitled. I used to work in the film and TV industry. Tyra Banks legitimately will fire some people if they look her in the eye when passing in the hallway, mostly interns. Ugh. On the plus side, Tom Hanks and David Tennant are genuinely amazing. And Eric Dane, good guy. Once an actress yelled at one of our new writers, and Eric heard about it. He later came by to apologize publicly in front of the whole cast and crew, even though it wasn't his doing. Love that guy. And someone on the crew later tried to poison that actress, so. I love how no one even acknowledged the whole poison thing. Yeah. Let's just not talk about it, was the reaction of the showrunners at first. They weren't going to fire the guilty parties, or tell the actress. We convinced them this was nuts. David Tennant, yes. He is one of my all-time heroes, and it makes me so happy to hear that he's a genuinely good guy. I used to sit next to Billie Eilish in choir up until like less than 2 years ago, when she really blew up. I saw her again when she came to one of our performances last year and she gave me a hug. Anyway, what's so weird to wrap my head around when I see her online or in interviews is that she's the exact same person that I knew her to be all my life. Weird, quirky, always sticking out her tongue and lifting her lips up to make weird faces, always making fun of herself and others in a playful way, but really down to earth. It's so weird seeing the person I sat next to for years literally copy and pasted onto such a high celebrity platform. I had a bit of a superiority based idea of her, but I had to reevaluate when she explained why she wears baggy clothes, and I watched a few interviews of her. She's so young and so talented, and I have a lot of respect for her. I think she's brilliant. Why does she wear baggy clothes? So people can't comment on her body or sexualize her. My friend has worked on Dr. Phil for years. He has a no eye contact rule and is apparently one of the nastiest, most self-absorbed people in the industry. The no eye contact rule is because he doesn't want people to realize he's cross-eyed and his eyes are too close together. Source: I'm out of work and get depressed in the afternoon. Yes. My old roommate worked on his show and said he was the worst. Dr. Phil must be sent to the ranch. Yeah, I knew someone who was in Aunt's PhD program with him. He said everyone thought he was super narcissistic. Not a fun guy to be around. He also abused and tried to stepfather his first wife to the point she fled across the country and changed her name to get away from him. Looks like it worked with the second one, though. My brother worked with Lori Loughlin on a bunch of sets lately, and she's apparently super nice. She followed him on Instagram until the whole college admissions thing. He badly cut his hand working on a project at home, and when we were at the she sent him a long message just making sure he's okay, etc. I know that, if this gets any comments at all, they'll be about paying to get her daughter into USC, but she's a solid person. He also worked with John Bernthal, based on the stories from that set, he's a secret Kinu. I think that's what made the college incident so upsetting. She was so loved and known for her kindness and motherhood before the debacle. Kudos to you for looking at the good. The motherhood part is what got her in trouble, along with her kid not saying, "No, I'm not lying to get into a college. I just want to party." Worked in the business for about 10 years. I found that reality TV stars were the hardest to work with. I worked mostly with stars from Bravo and they were all entitled and horrible. Celebs I've met that were super nice: Rihanna, Mark Hamill, Tony Todd, Peter Dinklage, and Emmanuel Chikwi. I'm requesting an AMA for the Bravo Housewife sub. Worst stories from Bravo. Any tea is appreciated, even if it is ice cold. Thank goodness my concerns about the situation's personality aren't unfounded, lol. I know a guy who worked on the new movie coming out, 21 Bridges. He said Chadwick Boseman was insufferable. On the other hand, he says J.K. Simmons was super friendly. I've heard the best way to get on J.K. Simmons' good side is to have pictures of Spider-Man. My dream in life is to just sidle up to J.K. Simmons all hush hush like and hand him a manila envelope full of pictures of Spider-Man. I had heard that he hates doing the Wakanda Forever thing because he was asked to do it so much, but that doesn't really mean much. I was gonna say, that's like asking Matt Mercer McCree in Overwatch to say it's CIEI noon. He's a super chill guy, but he does get annoyed with people constantly making that joke, especially since he's had a very diverse career so far, including Fire Emblem, Resident Evil, and Attack on Titan. No actor wants to be typecast, or maybe line cast for a single line in a single performance. Tom Hanks. JK, dude's a saint. Tom Hanks is the dude that, if you find out he punched a nun, you'd wonder what the nun did wrong. I met John Cleese at a Patent Awards dinner in 2003, and I'm still disappointed in that experience. Because I only got to talk to him for a few minutes. He's even funnier in person. He told me he kept a set of the teeth he wore in Rat Race. Cleese complimented my beard at a meet and greet last year. He took my face in his hands and titled my head back and said, "Your nasal hair hasn't even grown into your mustache." Family member works in the industry. Ben Stiller and John Cusack have been described as very entitled and exactly what you would expect from them. That's a bit odd to me. I've met Ben Stiller, and he came across to me as being humble and accommodating almost to the point of seeming embarrassed by any attention. Not an actor but a director, David Fincher. He is a repaint to work with, and he is beyond eccentric. Did some work as an audio PA production assistant for a while. If anyone wore anything red on his set, they were fired on the spot. I work in the music industry now, and one of the best people to work with is Garth Brooks. He's very laid back and incredibly humble. Treats everyone from the top down with the utmost respect. I met Johnny Depp, Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom at a Pirates premiere. I'm a nobody and Johnny Depp treated me as such. Didn't talk to a single person and had security around him the whole time. Not the best impression. But Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley were really kind. Orlando Bloom even took my phone from me to get that perfect selfie angle, his words. I didn't even ask for a picture, haha, so kind. Honestly, Keira Knightley was carrying the Pirates movies. At a video game company I worked at back in the early mid-2000s, before a meeting to go over some potential deals, Tom Cruise's handler people told us to set up this big spread of treats food, and several different kids of water in blue bottles only back when this was a thing. When Mr. Cruz came to the office he was super polite, friendly, creative, intelligent. I was expecting strangeness and absurdity. We were all pleasantly surprised. Chris Pratt is as nice and funny as they come. Treats everyone with the same genuine respect. I spent hours with him on a gym bleacher watching wrestling, and he treated everyone including me, as if we were all close workmates. I love knowing this. He seems like a great guy. Not entitled, but I was an extra on God's Not Dead. The classroom scene was sweltering because of all the lights. Me and some other friends were pretty miserable and all of a sudden we hear wow, it's hot back here, and turn around to see Kevin Sorbo. He ended up talking with us for about 15 to 20 minutes before he had to get back to work. Super chill dude who seemed very much like a normal person. 10 would chill with Hercules again. Know someone that is close to Robert Downey Jr. Downey is a really nice guy that is super focused on his family. This guy can pick who he works with and has been with Downey a few years now and says he's one of the best guys in Hollywood. Sheryl Crow and Bill Maher are the only people I've heard him say are just awful. I've asked about the Avengers and he said overall they're nice. Quite the opposite here. I've met Naomi Campbell in a few private events and she is the nicest celebrity I've met. She was kind and generous to the wait staff, charming and a real class act. That's interesting. She's been convicted of assaulting employees and associates a few times. Lol, maybe she fixed whatever issue that was. I saw Don S. Davis at the airport once. He got on the plane like some kind of guy who goes places with his wife. At least I think it was him. It could have just been some guy though. General George Hammond Wright. A professor of mine's sister met Jeff Goldblum in LA and he got her number. Apparently he called her once at 4 AM to talk about snow. That was the only time they spoke. I used to be in a clan on BF with some dudes who worked in the production side. The number one worst person they met was Scott Eastwood. Do you know who I am? Was his favorite thing to say to people. Apparently George Lucas' son told him off at a gala event. Wow. Good on Lucas Jr. I remember Scott Eastwood was in the running for Solo back when casting was in full swing. I'm glad he didn't get it now. Euron Greyjoy from Game of Thrones is a Danish actor called Pilaus Vertical Barke. Has rising in fame with roles in movies like Ghost in a Shell and I've met him several times because we have a friend in common and he is just the coolest person on the planet. You don't realize has acted with Scarlett Johansson when you're talking. Has just so genuine and I'm inviting him to my wedding for sure. He is an amazing Danish actor. Finally getting the fame he deserves. David Suzuki, not an actor, but public personality anyway. Next time I see him, I will cross the street to avoid him, as would many people I know who have also dealt with him. To be fair, I'd probably be just as miserable as he is if I had dedicated my entire life to saving the environment, and this is how it's all playing out. He made my mom just about cry, so there's that. We saw him shopping for toothbrushes at London Drugs and I encouraged her to go say hi, since she was such a big fan. She approached him, said excuse me, are you David Suzuki? He stared at her with a look of disgust for about 10 seconds, rolled his eyes, said yes and pushed past her, just walked away. She's vowed never to watch The Nature of Things again. Please take these comments with a pinch of salt. Some of the people here have certain agenda to shift people's opinion on certain celebrity. Ali Lata tried to push my sister down some stairs when they were filming Final Destination. She was an extra in the Paris Victoria, BC scenes and apparently Ali didn't like her flirting with Devin Sawa. The entitled part is when she sat down for lunch, lifted her hair and let out a louder hem. She wanted someone to come remove her jacket. I witnessed that part. My buddy flew Ben Affleck around, said he was cool AF. Just chill. A friend of mine from college asked her PA sister this same question. Then in turn my friend told our group. Friend's sister told her that Edward Norton was the biggest, winniest baby she'd ever had to deal with, and she would turn down a job in the future if she found out she'd have to work with him. Again, this is fourth hand, but I guess he would throw tantrums at least daily over nothing. Not a movie set, but oddly, John D. Lancey has a little bit of a chip on his shoulder when it comes to professional work, but was very tolerant and charming among fans from what I observed in the half hour or so I got to hang around him. This is kind of the opposite of the point of the post, but it feels like a good place to share. I was a featured extra on set for Foxcatcher, one of the Olympic scenes Bennett Miller kept reshooting, and it turned into a really long day. Not sure how common that is, but needless to say people were getting worn out by the 10-hour mark. Mark Ruffalo and Channing Tatum went out of their way just to take some time and thank everyone for being there and genuinely seemed like really nice guys. The only person who didn't have anything to say was surprisingly Steve Carell, but I chalk that up to him going method and trying to get in the mindset of DuPont. Mark Ruffalo really seems like he is a very nice guy. Worst celebrity I've met is Van Morrison, but I'm pretty sure he is on the spectrum or something. He's rude for no reason. Oh yeah, and Sinead O'Connor too, but she's also got her mental health problems and spent time with the Magdalenes too, so she gets a free pass. Strangely enough, Gail Simone, who is actually a comic book writer, her day on set was not pleasant. Kevin Bacon is a sweetheart and gave me the ability to gift everyone I know with a 6 degrees of separation with Kevin Bacon. I've posted this before. My BF works in the movie studios and concerts where we live and has done small to major movies and met some pretty big movie stars because of it. Johnny Depp, Jason Momoa, Chris Hemsworth, Matt Damon etc. The worst person has ever had to deal with was Blake Lively. Said she was the most entitled, snobby and rude person to deal with through tantrums on set, and she treated literally every single person like a pose except for the director. Said if there's another movie and she's in it, he will refuse. Other than her, every other star has dealt with has said, are pretty easygoing, chilled out and will talk to literally anyone if you don't make a huge fuss about them. Based on Twitter, Ryan Reynolds is an excellent guy. I remember a story on Reddit a while back where the op was busy demolishing a bathroom stall and he heard someone vaguely familiar come in and shout, "Whoa, what?" I didn't hear. Op came out and saw it was Ryan Reynolds himself. After that, Reynolds invited Op and his wife to come have dinner with him and Blake Lively, where he was a super cool the whole time as well as being very sweet with Blake Lively. He also apparently suffers from anxiety, which is why he tends to act like Deadpool in interviews and such. It helps him sort of cope with social interaction. Coming from someone with anxiety, that seems about right. Say next to Patton Oswalt a number of years so on a flight from DC to LA. He wasn't really a celebrity at the time, but he was known. Really nice guy. Very down to earth, and very polite to the aircrew. He really is a nice guy and I would love to have him over for a Burgers sometime, if I ever manage to get anywhere near his orbit. I was about 21, and taking the subway at Grand Central the 4-5, and on the platform waiting as well was Jerry O'Connell. I said, "Are you Jerry O'Connell?" Was he right? And he actually was really nice and made small talk with me. I was wearing an LA Kings t-shirt and he asked if I was from LA. I was not from LA, and I was very starstruck. He was extremely tall and wearing a great suit. Nice guy.